Welcome to the Redirect Podcast. My name is Abigail Hewins.
And I'm Emily Rojas. The Redirect Podcast is a show where we shift the conversation back to books. We discuss themes from some of our favorite fictional books and how those themes show up in real lived experiences.
On today's episode, we'll be comparing two books, one fiction and one nonfiction, both focusing on rock and roll in the 1970s. That's right. We're diving into Daisy Jones and the Six and making rumors.
And for this very special episode, we're joined by our great friend and fellow Daisy Jones lover, Emma Wright.
Yay!
Hello.
Welcome, Emma. You're our
Thank
guest
you.
number 2 in the history of the Redirect Podcast. How do you feel?
I'm honored. Long-time friend, long-time listener. I'm excited to
First
be here.
time caller.
First-time
Welcome.
caller.
Emma, would you like to give like a 15-second recap of like what kind of books you like or what kind of reader you are? Or maybe one of your favorite books of all time?
Oh, man. I think I'm just going to throw it back to Emily in the sense that maybe all of the books that I read last year, Emily recommended. And
Thank you.
plug
Follow Emily
exactly
on Instagram at Emily Rojas Writer.
So we can get into this, but Daisy Jones like restarted something for me with reading.
Yes.
And so I typically go for like I love biographies. I love learning about people, and I get kind of stuck trying to read heavy books. And I think that's a disservice to what reading is. So Daisy Jones was perfect. Chef's kiss.
It's kind of a great book for you, I feel like, then, because it's kind of like a fake biography, but a lot easier to read because of its format, which we can talk more about, but also has the heaviness, like it's sad. But also, it's like a light, fun read at the same time somehow.
Yes.
So you're welcome.
Great recommendation. Yes.
Okay, so for this episode, we're going to start, I think, talking about Daisy Jones and the Six, and then we're going to kind of fill in with the story behind the story, or one of the inspirations for the book with Making Rumors, which is, of course, about Fleetwood Mac and the making of their famous #1 hit album, Rumours. So, let's just dive
With
into
a
Daisy
U.
Jones. Oh, Rumours with a U, yes, the Brits
Spell
have
the
struck
British
again.
way.
Honestly, but, it kind of looks better that way. For an album cover, like Rumors, Know You, meh.
Yeah, I kind of agree.
Anyways, so, Daisy Jones and the Six. First, I thought we could talk about just overall the format of this book. And also, we're going to go right into the biggest spoiler, so just, stop here if you want to go read Daisy Jones and the Six first. I wanted to talk a little bit about the author, the fictional author of the book, which is sort of the plot twist that comes at the end. Yeah, what's up?
First, should we talk about the real author, who is Taylor Jenkins Reid?
Sure. What do you want to say about Taylor Jenkins?
I was going to say she wrote it before we
Yes.
talk about it. And also, she writes, I feel like, a lot of books about like famous or rich people. And
Yes.
that carries over here. It's like kind of like her thing. So that's fun. And she did this in a really cool way. It's probably one of her best books.
I think this is my favorite book
It's
by
her best
her. So I would say it's her best book, in my opinion. So anyways, if you haven't read the book, the format is kind of written as an oral history, as if Daisy Jones and the Six was a real band, as if they were. And the author, who is named Elaine Chang, is kind of interviewing them decades later about how they got together, how they rose to fame, and then essentially how they very suddenly and dramatically broke up and basically were never heard from again. The reveal that you get at the end is that this author is actually the daughter of Billy Dunn, lead singer, kind of the main guy of Daisy Jones and the Six. And what did you guys think when you first read that twist, I guess? Because rereading it, knowing the twist, I reread it for this episode, it was like such an interesting texture to read it through from the beginning, knowing the whole time that as he's telling these stories, he's talking to his daughter. And as Daisy's telling the stories, she's talking to the daughter of a man she once loved. Like, so much of an added layer. But when you first read it, you don't know that. So what was your guys' first reaction to that twist?
Emma, you first.
I think the whole conversation around Billy and all of the issues that Billy and Daisy go through, and, you know, the constant kind of question of infidelity and all those things, having it, realizing that the anchor of this book, the person who is actually putting this together, quote unquote, for us, is the daughter. I mean, I stopped reading for a second and kind of just had to like process through kind of what you just said, Emily, of what all the implications of that.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. So I listened to the audiobook, which I highly recommend if you haven't. It's listened or read this book. It's a full cast of professional actors, including Judy Greer, who that's the only one where I'm like, I know her voice so well that she plays Karen, the keyboardist of the band, and it's like her voice is so distinct. I kept picturing Judy Greer as a keyboardist. But anyways, because of there's like so much performance in the book, because let's backtrack a little bit. It's a book of interviews, and basically it goes back and forth of like all the different members of the band retelling the same stories from different perspectives. And the main characters of the book, Daisy Jones and Billy Dunn, have kind of like a enemies to lovers thing, but also kind of a doomed love because Billy Dunn is in love with his wife, who he's very committed to. Mm-hmm. And so that's like the context coming here, the importance of the fact that his daughter was the one who's revealed to write the book. So back to the point of the audiobook, like there's a lot of like performance that goes into delivering the lines of the book, and like emotion, and like when you read it, if you read it back, it's like talking about, you know, we just looked at each other and we were in love.
A lot of looking at each other in this book.
Yeah, a lot of sexual tension. And then like imagine saying that to your daughter who was alive during that time and is the product of your marriage, which was a very loving marriage. It's like
Right.
Complicated.
It was like towing the line of cheating. It was
Absolutely.
emotional cheating.
100%.
Anyway.
Imagine being that daughter listening to that.
Oh yeah. Yes. But something super interesting that I think you miss in the audiobook is in the actual text, there's a few times where you know when you're doing a direct quote of someone but you change one of the words, you put it in like the brackets to indicate that you've changed that word to help it fit into the context. There's a few times where it says like Julia was, because that's the author's first name and the daughter's name, in brackets. So the implication, if you know the twist, is that the person said you were instead of Julia was. So there's a few moments like that.
Did not catch that.
That it's, yeah, if you're reading it for the first time, you're not thinking anything of it. But while rereading it, I was like, oh my gosh, like it just adds to think, because it's these very tense moments where it does happen.
Yes.
And then it helps you really picture like Billy's like, you were this or whatever, and how much more of a plea it was versus just retelling a story.
One last thing I was going to say about that reveal of the author is a lot of those things she was hearing for the first time, right?
Yeah.
So you can only imagine the kind of processing that you're doing.
Right. Or it's adding context to things you kind of knew or saw because you were, 4, 5, 6 years old. But now you're getting like, oh, I did not know all that was going on behind the scenes.
I want another book for her.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so the book kind of opens with Daisy Jones. She is described as obviously broken and classically beautiful, which I think is a really easy summation of her. But she is incredibly like naturally talented, and she kind of takes off with her music career because of her insane natural talent, but also her insane good looks. But she kind of like deeply wants to write her own music, but is not really able to because they kind of are like, you're not there yet or whatever, you're not ready yet. So flash forward, then we get the making of The Six, which starts out with Billy and Graham Dunn, which are the Dunn brothers. They start a little band with just the two of them, but they kind of fill in the rest of the cast of characters, and eventually they call themselves The Six. And pretty early in the book, Billy meets his wife, Camilla, as we've referenced, and they get married. And this kind of starts off Billy's characterization as someone who deeply, deeply wants to be a good man and wants to be a good husband and like intellectually is like, I want to be a stand-up person, but also deeply struggles to follow through on that. So I thought this would be a good place to kind of discuss maybe preliminarily our thoughts on Camilla because she to me is such a fascinating character. She marries Billy kind of eyes wide open, I think, kind of knowing all that he is, but also like with a firm hand of like, you're not gonna screw this up. Like, no matter what you do, I'm gonna reel you back in. And, like, I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts on Camilla as a character?
Well, she says that she says to him at one point, like, I know I'm marrying like a rocker. Like, I know I'm marrying somebody in a rock band. So like, I'm not like, I know what I signed up for. I'm not signing up for like husband who goes to work, comes home every night at 5 and like does homework with the kids. Like, she went into it that understanding, but at the same time, she's like, you can't be an alcoholic, you can't be a drug addict, and you
Right.
can't cheat on me. And those are
It's like
things that he
valid.
does struggle to not do
Yes.
or struggle to do. Emma, what do you think?
I struggled with Camilla's character because I really like her, but I think I was putting myself in that role and just thinking about how draining and scary and difficult it would be to be in a relationship. So in the one sense, it points to, like you've said, their commitment and love, but Camilla's just also a really good friend to him.
hmm
Like
Yeah.
that no opt out kind of mentality of like,
Yeah, I
we're in
think
this
it's
together.
super interesting because I think there's something complicated, but also something incredibly healthy about her attitude towards her marriage of like, I am going to give you all the trust in the world, even when you don't deserve it. And I'm going to hold this with an open hand. And like, I'm going to be okay without you. But I'm also going to be, like you said, be a good friend. I'm not going to let you screw up your life. And I know we love each other. I know you love your family. And I'm going to, like, it's almost like she's going to rise above the situations he puts her through. But I don't know. She's not to me, like, to me, there's like sad characters where you're like, oh my gosh, your husband's cheating on you and you're still staying with him. To me, she wasn't like a sad wife character. She was like a strong wife character, even though like some of her actions were the same, if that makes sense.
Yeah, she was incredibly supportive to him.
hmm
And I think like a big part of his arc is that he's like doesn't think he's good enough for her, which he
hmm
probably isn't.
Definitely
But
not.
like he wants a lot of his story and his arc through the book is like he's just trying to make it up to her, that he feels
Mhm.
like he falls short of her goodness.
Yeah.
And he's constantly trying to be a better man and prove to her that he's good enough.
Yeah.
He's
I
like
agree.
living for her,
Yeah.
basically.
Definitely. And for his kids, for sure, which comes later. But, like, right after they get married, I wrote down this quote. He leaves the next morning to go on tour.
Mm.
And she says, I didn't want him to go, but I also would have never let him stay. And I think that kind of sums up Camilla. Like, she doesn't want him to do all this stuff, but she's also, again, like you said, she knew she married a rock and roll guy, and she's willing to kind of put up with whatever comes with that because she loves him. So, and she loves their family, I think. But unfortunately, Billy seems to feel incredibly trapped by the marriage, and so they go on tour, and he kind of dives deep into the world of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And that kind of spirals out for a little. He's, drinking, using drugs, and sleeping around. And, I think there's a part where someone describes the band, after every show, some of them are getting drunk, some of them are using drugs, some of them are sleeping with women, but Billy was doing all of the above. And eventually Camilla walks in on him cheating on her with one of the groupies of the band. And she says, if you think I'm going to let you screw up our life, you've lost your mind. And kind of, she's about to give birth to their child, their firstborn child, Julia, who's of course the author of the book. And Billy misses the birth of his firstborn daughter and goes straight into rehab rather than face Julia and his wife. So, any thoughts on that sequence of events?
Oh,
Tough.
tough. I think that was particularly poignant, that moment where he makes that decision to go into rehab. Instead, there's like two sides of that for me. Of the one of like, okay, good, you're taking care of business. Like, you recognize you need to get help. You got to get clean for your daughter. And then on the other side, just that thing he has to live with of, you missed her birth. You weren't there. And
when he's telling the story, he's telling it to Julia.
yeah.
Yes.
So he's telling the story of missing his daughter's birth. We don't know as the reader that he's telling it to his daughter, but he describes like in deep detail, like the shame he felt and like how lousy and like no good he felt. And that he missed like the first couple months of his daughter's life, that he'll never be able to get those back. And when you find out that he's saying that to his daughter, it's just like, whoa. Like, there are moments in our life, like some of us have parents that are on a spectrum of like transparency about their past. And like, I feel like there's moments that all of us have, like we get a little older and our parents say something and we're like,
huh?
What?
Like, I've never heard that before. Yeah.
Like, you've never been so honest about the way you felt as a young adult or something like that. And like, wow, I'm seeing you in a different light. But imagine that thing was about you.
Yeah. Crazy. Yeah, and this is actually one of the first places that thing I was talking about earlier happens. He says, it wasn't that I didn't want to be with, and then in brackets, her. I wanted to be with her so bad. You have no idea how bad. So the assumption, I guess, is that he really said, it wasn't that I didn't want to be with you. I wanted to be with you so bad. You have no idea how bad. And so rereading that, I'm like, oh my God. Like, that moment must have been, so emotional, like, as his daughter. Anyways, he does go into rehab, and he remains pretty straight-laced teetotaler from that point on, for the most part. He goes kind of straight home after shows, tries his absolute best to avoid any pitfalls, and this is the time when Daisy Jones joins the band.
Yeah, so on the side, Daisy Jones has been rising to prominence. So like, she starts out her life as like a groupie on the Sunset Strip, and ends up like becoming more recognized as a performer, as a songwriter. And then she does this solo album where she's not allowed to write her own songs, and she has to do like covers of all these like just okay songs. But she's becoming famous, and their manager, guys, remind me the name of the manager. Teddy. Teddy is also managing Daisy. He decides to basically put them together and is like, this will take the band to the next level.
Yeah, they're looking for someone to sing this duet with Billy of a song he wrote called Honeycomb. And they kind of give him a list of people, and Billy's like, no, wait, who's Daisy Jones? And he's like, oh God, I was hoping you would say that. She's going to be great. So she kind of joins the band, but the tension between the two starts immediately. And it's like a sexual tension, but it's also like a hatred tension. Like,
yeah, there's competition.
It's both.
There's a thin line. You get the sense that this guy, the manager, is setting them up. Like, he knows. He has to know how volatile this could be.
Well, because, okay, so Daisy represents everything that Billy is trying to run from. He's gotten clean, and she is really into drugs. And she drinks all the time, and she's always on cocaine and whatever. And he's like, they have this like soul tie connection, like where they just get each other. There's like one night where they're like, the whole group is like at a piano bar after a show, and they're doing an interview with Rolling Stone, and like they just really connect, but also like on a friendship level, on like almost like a soulmate level. But he's resisting being around her so much because he's like, I can't associate myself with everything you're doing in your life. Like, I can't be around the people you're around. I can't be around you doing drugs, like all this stuff. I just can't be a part of it. And so there's just like push and pull.
Yeah. And I think for a long time, Billy kind of uses that as a cover for his feelings for her, because it's so easy to be like, well, I just don't want to be around her because I can't be, tempted to like drink or use drugs again. But I think like later on in the book, he's able to admit, like, that wasn't the only reason, like, that's not the only thing that's keeping me from Daisy. It's also this knowledge of, like, if I let myself get too close, I don't know. I don't know what's going
And
to happen
again, telling that to his
to your
daughter.
And Daisy like really wants his approval. Like as the leader of the band, like she wants him to like her like as a person and doesn't understand why he doesn't. But like she also wants to be validated and like be a real member of the band and feels like she doesn't understand. Is he threatened by me? Does he just not like me? Like what is it about me that he just doesn't like? But also that matters to her because again, they have this like soul tie thing going on.
Hmm. And I think this kind of is summed up in what happens with the song Honey Home. So essentially, Billy wrote this song about his wife, and the vibe is kind of like, I'm going to give you this beautiful house, on the coast, or I'm going to give you a happy life. And Daisy comes in and she instantly, without consulting Billy, sings her duet part of this song, and she changes it to be, it was originally written as a statement, you will do this for me. But she writes it to be a question. Will you give me this? Will you do this? And it kind of changes the meaning of the song. And I think not only does Billy have control issues, as, we'll see throughout this book when it comes to his music, but he also has this like deep insecurity. He's like, I wrote this about my wife and now you're changing it. So it makes me feel like maybe I won't be able to give those things to her. So it's like playing on every like insecurity that Billy has.
He's super insecure.
Super duper. For probably good reason. So this is the point where Billy and Camilla have their twins. And then also Daisy eventually joins the band. At first it was just going to be for the duet, but they all kind of vote to bring her in as a part of the band, and they become Daisy Jones and the Six. And her and Billy begin to write their album together, which is a very... I love this sequence because they are like so clearly writing songs about each other and their feelings for each other. And Billy still, even in this, decades later retelling, he's like, no, that song wasn't about her. And everyone's like, the song was about Daisy. It's like everyone can see, but he won't even admit it even to himself, in this, so many years have passed and he still can't see. So do you guys have any thoughts about this songwriting part together?
I think you hit the nail on the head, Abigail, when you were talking about the constant tension of Daisy literally representing everything Billy's running from. And then all of a sudden, she's just in his face constantly. And they have to go to a remote location together and write songs and dig into these really deep and tension-filled topics. So I think for me, that sequence was like, I don't know, it was very representative of like the internal conflict that Billy's having, right? But also what it might be like for anyone who's struggling with those kinds of things. And Billy and Daisy being these kind of twin flames, I think in a lot of ways it felt like he was talking and processing through that with another version of himself in a way.
Yeah. And then like, so it's hard for him at first because he used to write all the songs for the band and now she's in it and she's a really gifted songwriter. She's not really the book mentions this. She's not really a gifted like technical musician. She doesn't read or write music. She doesn't play instruments. Like she's really more of a poet who has a great singing voice and that's her specialty. But he comes in with a songbook full of songs about Camila. And he's like, okay. And she's like, I don't want to sing a bunch of songs about your wife. I'm just going to sit here and sing a bunch of songs about your wife. That is loaded because it's like, okay, artistically, I want to be reflected here too. But also I am over time, she's increasingly becoming this other significant woman in his life. And she doesn't want to be singing songs about the other woman he loves. Like he's loving two women in very different ways. Mm-hmm. But he loves two women and she doesn't want to sing about the other one.
Yeah. And I think there's a part in this sequence where Graham Billy's brother, says, I used to think music was just about music, and now I know that it's not. And it's like, yeah, like if you're um, writing songs about your real life and your real feelings, and then you have to write them with the person you're feeling the things about, and then you have to sing them on stage in front of people constantly, like, that's also something that Taylor Jenkins Reid mentions when she drew her inspiration from Fleetwood Mac. Like, she mentions the relationship, which we'll get into much later, between Stevie Nicks and Lindsey, I think, Buckingham. And she said, like, that's something she thought about a lot, like how that keeps the wounds open. Like, you're not able to heal because you have to keep singing the same things about this real person with the real person.
With the real person.
Yeah.
So
and,
I think that'd be hard.
I have lots of notes about that for later in this episode about the making of Rumours. But, okay, one thing I wanted to pull out from this whole songwriting section, I loved it, and it was so frustrating because they would, like, describe the rhythm and the melody of the song and, like, say the lyrics, but you can't listen to the song.
Yeah.
And there's so many times I wanted to pull my phone open and Google the song to listen to it, and I couldn't.
Me too.
Which is why I cannot wait for this. So we haven't mentioned this, but Daisy Jones and the Six, if you didn't already know, is being made into a TV show, and they're writing all the songs, and, like, they're actually doing them. And I cannot wait for this itch to be scratched because it is so annoying to me that I cannot listen to the songs.
When I first listened to this audiobook, I did that. I went to Spotify. I was like, surely these songs are real because they are just described so vividly in this book that you're like, someone's like made this a song, you know?
It is so frustrating.
It is. So I will. Yeah. Have you guys listened to Regret Me? It's been released.
I've listened to it. Yeah.
I haven't, but I've seen clips of it. And
go do it.
Yeah. After this, I'm gonna need to inundate myself with Daisy Jones and the Six again.
I know.
So Regret Me, which is now available on Spotify, you can go listen to it, is one of the songs that that Daisy Jones writes about, like, basically this tension that she has with Billy, and, like, you're gonna regret me, the fact that you didn't choose me, basically. It's just so much tension. It's so loaded, and it just gosh.
Speaking of tension, this is an anecdote I wanted to highlight. There's one day where Daisy doesn't show up to record, and Billy's kind of like, the only reason she wouldn't show up is because she's stoned and can't make it here. So they go and find her, and she's incredibly, drugged out. And so Billy kind of looks at her, and, she actually gets up and steps in broken glass, but doesn't even feel it because that's how strung out she is. And Billy just turns around and leaves. And he's like, I can't be there. I can't watch this. And that night he writes the song Impossible Woman, which he claims is about, like, I want to use these drugs, because that was his feelings. He's like, I'm not the type of guy who looks at her and thinks, like, man, she's ruining her life. I'm the type of guy that looks at her and thinks, man, she knows how to have a good time. So he thinks about, I want the drugs, but I can't have them. I want to be this partier, but I can't have that. So he writes the song Impossible Woman, but the whole band's like, yeah, that was about Daisy. And Daisy's like, you wrote this last night after you saw me? Like, And they end up recording the song, and it takes Daisy a really long time to nail it because he kind of, like, pushes her vocally to her limits and really stretches her. And I'm just going to read this quote because I said the angst. So finally she gets it late at night. Everyone's gone. It's basically just Billy and, like, their producer and Daisy left in the studio. And she gets it. And it says she pulled the headphones off and threw them down and ran out of the booth. And I kid you not, ran directly into Billy's arms. He picked her up just off the floor and kind of swung her back and forth for a moment. And I could have sworn to you, he smelled her hair before he put her back down.
And that was from the perspective of the producer. Remind me of the producer's name.
Well, that was from actually the perspective of Rod, who was, like, their road.
Yeah. It is. So it's from the perspective of Rod, the roadie guy. It is one of those moments. It's one of the first moments where you're like, oh, like, as dumb as it seems now, for me, it took a while to really understand where Billy was coming from, because in Billy's interviews, like, and what he's saying, he's never really ever confessing that he loved Daisy.
Yes,
Right.
not to this
But
point.
But Daisy is talking about the feelings. All of the other band members, Karen, Eddie, Graham, everybody else is talking about the feelings. And like, so I'm like, it takes you a while to actually buy into the fact that he's starting to really love her.
Yeah, because you're
For
like,
me at least.
You're like, yeah, his explanation kind of makes sense. Like, he is in recovery. He's sober. He doesn't want to go down this path that Daisy is like so hard on, this drug path. And so you're like, yeah, I guess that makes sense. And he does really love Camilla. Like, it's not like that's fake, you know?
Exactly.
So
He really loves her.
Right.
it really kind of is like, does he like her? Until some of these moments, like this is kind of the tipping point, I would say, where you're like, okay, there's something there. Like,
There's no way.
yeah. This is also one of the moments where, or this is the moment where Daisy, they're like recording a song together on the same mic, which their audio engineer is like, can y'all stop freaking doing this? But they're recording a song together and she kind of leans in like she's going to kiss him. And he just, like, it says their lips just barely grazed. And then he just says,
No.
I can't. What the?
And that's
my
like,
God.
that's when she gets in her car, like she's really upset and embarrassed or whatever. He tries to pretend it didn't happen. And then that's when she ends up writing Regret Me, which is the song about like,
Yes.
you're going to wish. So
She
then
was
it's
like,
this is when it's blown
devastated.
open.
Yeah.
This one is blown open that she's mad he doesn't love her, or that he does love her and she knows that, but he won't give into it and whatever. And then everything kind of explodes between them. And like all of a sudden there's just all of this tension between them.
Yes. And now, like, she doesn't want to be near him. She doesn't. They're
They
sitting
don't want to
on.
look at each other.
Yeah, they're on opposite sides of the stage. So, and they don't sing Honeycomb anymore. That's
And
critical.
they don't sing Honeycomb.
And then at that exact moment, they do the album cover photo shoot, which that scene
Oh
lives
my
rent free in
gosh.
my mind. This is one of those scenes where you can picture it so vividly.
Yes.
I know.
Like, I have an image in my mind of this whole scene of what it was like. They're on the hills, you know, in Los Angeles, and it says Daisy's wearing like a tank top, no bra. Billy's in just a denim, you know, what does they call that? A cowboy tuxedo or something?
Canadian tuxedo.
Canadian tuxedo. I knew there was a name for that, you know, full denim. And the photographer gets there and essentially instantly keys into the tension between Daisy and Billy. And he's like, this is the album cover. And he's trying to get them to stand next to each other. Like, that they won't. Like, he's rearranging the band and Billy and Daisy never stand next to each other. And finally he gets them. He goes up in close on the two of them. And just like their torsos facing towards each other ends up being the cover of the album. And of course the rest of the band's upset about this, but it's like this photographer just felt it. He's like, that's the album cover. It's Daisy and Billy. And then I think on the back there's a photo of the whole band, but it's like 1 second where Daisy and Billy both had turned and are looking at each other from across, you know, the lineup. And Billy is quoted as saying like, I was trying so hard not to look at her, and this photographer got the 2 times the whole day I actually looked at her on camera, and that ended up being the album cover. So
It's a good photographer.
I cannot wait to see this in the TV show because I can just, it's so visceral for me.
This was another moment in this book where I had to Google and figure out if this album cover existed or if someone had made something, because it's described in such detail and the
Yes.
tension has built, like, you are there in the book.
Yes.
And I could picture it. Like, right now, it's in my head, right? Like, so vivid. I will say that this is kind of an aside, but going back to that, like, scratching the itch of the music,
Mm-hmm.
while I was reading this, I immediately went into a Star is Born album
It's
binge.
It's actually very Star is Born vibes. Especially when you hear Billy Dunn, I just feel like Billy Dunn could definitely be
Billy Dunn.
Has that
exactly.
Yes.
Yes,
yes.
he could have that
And
gritty
I-
voice.
It feels, you know, obviously there's differences in Lady Gaga's character and Daisy, but it just feels like there's so much overlap in this story to me.
Yes.
And almost like Daisy would be I can't remember their names in A Star Is Born, but it's almost like the female version to me in some way.
One of the things that the photographer describes in the book is like the tension of the negative space between them, like the blue sky between them, and it's like almost like its own thing. And it just shout out to Jenkins Reid for like being able to write like that. Like,
Yeah.
just coming back, like I literally forgot that it wasn't a transcription. Like an author sat down and wrote that.
Yes.
So like shouts to her. Like that is
Absolutely.
amazing stuff.
Yes.
Like really good job. Like I keep on forgetting this is a novel. It's
yes. I think Taylor Jenkins Reid is super talented at creating characters that feel real. Like every book I've read by her, you're like, this could really happen. Like you really feel like it could really happen. The characters are complex. They have a lot of depth. And I think it gives them this feeling of like grounded in reality that some authors aren't able to achieve as well as her. So I would shout out to her for that.
And it doesn't feel forced at all.
No.
It feels very natural.
Yes, it feels like this is what would happen. It's not like she's leading you down a path that doesn't feel realistic. It's like, yeah, no, this is what would happen.
So they do the album cover. The rest of the band is pissed.
Very.
Okay, so this is a key part that we'll come back to when we get to making Rumours. But they take a break. Everyone goes on vacation. While they're on vacation, Daisy gets married to this like Italian prince.
Yes, who is evil. I wrote evil Nicky. His name is Niccolo or Nicky.
I was racking my brain trying to remember how all of this went down, the dynamics between all of this, because I remember them coming back.
Yes, this part is like kind of a weird scenario.
How did it happen?
Essentially, like Abigail said, they just take a break from before they are going to go on tour. And it's kind of like, okay, they've done the album, there's some time off, and they all kind of go their separate ways. Billy goes back to his family to spend a lot of time with them. Karen and Graham, who have a side romance plot that we haven't mentioned yet, they kind of spend the whole summer together. And then Daisy goes off and gets married very dramatically.
But while everyone is on vacation, Billy basically re-records the album and changes people's parts. This is the part I wanted to highlight. Like, there's a lot of tension in the band about how he has control issues and like how everyone wanted to be in control of their own instrumental parts, particularly Eddie, who's the bass player. I think that's Eddie.
Yes, Eddie is particularly angry. Yes.
Yeah, he's particularly like, he re-records his bass lines and they come back and they all sit down to listen to it and they're like, respectfully, what the hell happened?
Yes. Yeah. Because at the beginning of the recording, they all are like, we should do this. No, we should do this. And Billy's like, no, we're going to do it my way. And Teddy kind of takes him aside and is like, look, man, like, we can fix it in post. Like, just let them do what they want and we'll make the album what we want.
Rude.
Yeah. So they come back and it's kind of back to what he originally wanted. And some of them are like, yeah, it was an amazing album. And, you know, I don't remember, I think it was Graham who was like, was it the best album we ever could have done because Billy let us have our own ideas? Or was it the best because Billy didn't listen to them anyway? It's like, we'll never really know. So yeah, that wasn't very interesting. And this kind of like, the tension and the cracks are really forming during this time. Obviously, Daisy and Billy, the tension between them is kind of reaching its peak. Their hatred for each other. She's going... And
Niccolo's around, and he's treating Daisy badly, and he's worsening her drug issues, and he's like... And it's making Billy upset because he's watching this person he cares about get sucked down. Yeah. It's just like... Imagine, like, the classic spiral. Like, this is a spiral.
The dominoes are starting to fall. And then they go on tour. And while they're on tour, Jonah from Rolling Stone comes to do a story, and Daisy's extremely high, and she's angry, and she's hurt, and so she tells him everything about Billy going to rehab, missing the birth of his daughter, kind of all of the mistakes he's made. And Billy kind of comes back the next day and is like, okay, Jonah, you want to talk to me and Daisy? And Jonah's like, actually, I already talked to Daisy. She told me some really interesting stuff about your life. And so Billy goes, I hate Daisy Jones.
And Well, and Jonah's
And
basically
so that's the
like,
story.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's like, I won't run it if you give me something else to run.
Yeah. You need to give me a better story.
And then he says,
And
like, I
so,
hate Daisy Jones.
yes. And so, but interestingly, I think Karen is the one who says it when the story goes live, is like, even Jonah didn't see what was really going on. Like, they didn't hate each other, you know? Like, obviously, that was coming from somewhere else, but that kind of even further fuels their fame and the ticket sales to their tour because, I mean, can you imagine if you found out that these band members of, like, this most popular band at the time maybe hated each other, maybe something else? You would be going to the show being like, I have to see this for myself.
Totally.
Well, and they describe the energy between Billy and Daisy all the time. Taylor Jenkins Reid
Yes.
is constantly describing what it was like to watch them and how kind of
Yes.
electrifying and captivating it was.
Yes, like sometimes they're on opposite sides of the stage, not looking at each other, but singing together. And then sometimes they're singing on the same mic, just staring into each other's eyes, like no one else is even in the room. It's like this, I don't know, like they are themselves like
They are.
a paradox.
He loves
Like,
he
Yeah.
loves Camila very much, and he's devoted to her and dedicated to her. At the same time, like you can be in love with someone who's not your soulmate, and like the way she describes it makes you think, okay, Billy and Daisy are soulmates.
So then this brings us to we're almost to what I would say is the climax of the book. But kind of the pre-climax, I think, is their SNL performance. They're on Saturday Night Live. And they perform the first song, and Daisy and Billy are kind of staring at each other, and they feel like the crowd's going crazy. And then Billy, during the break, they're about to come out for their second song, and he's like, it's just going to be me, Daisy, and Karen. We're just going to sing this one song together, not the rest of the band. And so him and Daisy go out there, and basically they're just singing straight to each other. And Graham, his brother, says he thought, I hope Camilla doesn't see this.
And
And
Daisy,
she does!
of course she does. And Daisy just, oh, and we see, like, we hear her thoughts about it because she's interviewed
Yes.
about it. But and she knows that they're in love, and she's kind of just like resigned to it. Like, she's not mad.
I know.
And at this point, she's divorced Niccolo. She's left him, thank God. And she's kind of clear-headed, and she's realized again, I do love him. The anger has passed. And I think she's described as singing with a lump in her throat. Like, it sounds like she's on the edge of just crying
Holding
as
back
she's singing
something.
to him.
And she says, I swear to God, for 3 minutes, we forgot that any of us, like, anything else was there. Like, we just
Yeah.
looked at each other for 3 minutes straight
Yeah.
and sang. It's like the world
Singing
is
to the
here.
man I love, he said.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then Billy, this is the point where Billy finally does admit, in looking back, that there was something there. He says, everything that made Daisy burn made me burn. Everything I loved about the world, Daisy loved about the world. Everything I struggled with, Daisy struggled with. We were two halves. We were the same. How could I be around Daisy Jones and not be mesmerized by her, not fall in love with her? I couldn't. I just couldn't. But Camilla meant more. And that goes on for a while. He says, his family meant more. My kids meant more. I wasn't going to screw it up for her. But, like, of course I loved her,
And
And that
it's-
is the
It's so hard
admission.
as the reader because you're like, you want him to make the right choice
Yeah.
with his family, but also you want this love story to be satisfied. So it's just like really
Yes.
impossible.
Well,
It's such a tension. Yeah.
and logically, it would be disastrous. Like,
Yeah.
everything in you is saying Daisy and Billy cannot be together.
Yes.
But
then you have these moments where you're like, just please put me out of my misery. And then Camilla also says that essentially the nature of love is that the person you love is going to break your heart at some point. And I thought that was really wise because it's like, it's true because like we're all imperfect, not to this extent probably. Hopefully not.
Hopefully.
You're not watching your like husband sing to another woman on Saturday Night Live. Like we hope that never happens to any of us. But like at some point in a small way, a human being is going to break your heart, or like even they're going to die before you. You know what I mean? Like something. Okay, yeah, I'm going down a sad path here, but at some point, loving people is knowing that they're going to break your heart in some way and being okay with that. And so this is when Camilla kind of says it was hard, and I don't know what to say, but I just trusted that he was going to come back to us. Um, yeah. So they go back on tour. This is really the end of the book, basically. Um, and this is their last show that they ever performed as a band, but you don't know that yet. But towards the end of the show, Billy's like, "You guys want us to do Honeycomb?" Which is obviously the original song that brought them together. And I'm gonna cry talking about this. But they haven't sang it together, really in over a year, I think they said. And Daisy and him come up to the mic and they sing Honeycomb, but Daisy decides to sing it the way he originally wrote it. She doesn't sing it the way that she had changed the song. And I just thought that was really poignant because it was like, she was like almost conceding that I'm never, like almost letting him go a little bit. And she said, "People say it's hard to be away from the people you love, but it was so hard to be right next to him." Like how hard it was to sing this song to him. And Billy kind of storms off the stage after it's all over, goes to the bar, orders a tequila, but is like having this internal battle of if he's going to drink it or not. And meanwhile, Camilla goes to Daisy's hotel room with her daughter, Julia, who was a little 5-year-old at the time. And this is when you get the reveal of who the author was, because she says, "I've tried to keep myself out of this narrative, but I'm actually the only person that can corroborate Daisy's story here because I was there."
Woo!
And so
Chills.
Camilla basically says, "You need to leave the band, Daisy. Like, you're going to destroy him and you're going to destroy yourself if you don't leave the band. Like, you need to go."
And she basically says it because he's always going to choose me. He's going to
Yeah.
choose us. So, like, she is standing so firm in her trust of him and is projecting that
Yeah.
out and being like, this isn't performative. I really do trust him, and I
Yeah.
know he's always going to stick by us.
But this is going to kill you guys both to keep putting yourselves through this night after
I
night
love how
if you
Camilla
don't leave.
is written. And I also love that, like, even in the weaknesses that are highlighted in different moments of the book, Taylor Jenkins Reid maintains this strong independence and confidence in all of her female characters that I love.
And I like that Billy didn't cheat on Camilla. Like, I like that him and Daisy never did anything. Like, I like that he was able to, like, stay strong. Like, I would have hated it if he had cheated on her. Like,
So, why was Julia the only one who was able to corroborate the events of that night?
because she was there.
Yeah, but why
yes,
couldn't
and she
anyone
was-
else corroborate it?
Because Daisy left the next day and she never told anyone.
Because Camila is dead.
Right.
Oh my God.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are you getting at here? Yes, yes.
The
Camilla's
reason,
dead.
the reason that she has to insert herself into the book is because she completed all the interviews with her mom
Oh.
first, and
That
then
kind
it's
of
revealed her
gets me
mom
too.
passed away.
Yes, before Daisy shared the story, which she had never told anyone else.
Yeah.
And even she asked, like, I think Daisy asked, Julia, "Your mom never told you about this?" And she said, "No, I think she felt like it was your story to tell if you ever wanted to." And so, yeah, Daisy and now Julia are the only ones who were left. Yes,
So-
Camilla she was diagnosed with lupus and eventually died from, I think, heart failure as a result of that disease.
And
Several years before the completion of this book.
the email.
So we
We're not
find
there
out. Yeah. So after that, Daisy decides she has this conversation and she's like, okay, fine. So she leaves the band, and then we haven't, like, even if we've spoiled a lot of the book for you, you should still go back and read it because we didn't cover all of the side plots.
There's a
of all
lot of
the other
side
characters.
plots. Yeah.
So we don't
Basically,
have
all
time
the
to cover
characters
that.
individually, they all individually kind of decide to leave the band for various reasons.
The biggest one is between Daisy and Billy, but like there's a lot of other stuff going on. So go read the book and find out about all that. But they break up and they cancel the rest of the tour, and they've never heard from him again until the publication of this
Until
book.
now.
Oh.
And Billy and Camilla got their happily ever after. They got their quiet life. He built her a house in the North Carolina coast, and he kind of lives a quiet life, writing songs for other artists. And of course, she died before the completion of the book. And then, the last page, which is disturbing to me because, Billy kind of says, like, "I'm really lonely. I miss your mom." And you're like, huh, he's lonely. And he says it's been 5 years since she passed away. So that's a respectable amount of time, in my opinion. And then I'm just going to read the email because
Oh my gosh.
how do you not? So then the last page of the book is an email from Camilla
This broke me.
to her three daughters, Julia, Susanna, and Maria, the two twins, and then, of course, the author. And the subject is your dad. And it says, "Hi girls, I need your help. After I'm gone, give your dad some time, and then please tell him to call Daisy Jones. Her number is in my date book in the second drawer of my nightstand. Tell your father I said, at the very least, the two of them owe me a song. Love, Mom." What the?
So in your heads, in your fantasy worlds, what happens?
I think he calls her.
And they get back together. And they get together.
I think they do. I think, okay, Daisy, her life after she ends up saying she got sober, she adopted a few sons. She says sons, I don't know how many. And she opens a foundation, and she's kind of, I feel like they never could have been together back in the 70s. Like, that would have burned down in flames. But I feel like now it sounds like she's really thought a lot about her life. She's a different person. They're in their 60s, they're old. He's lonely. He's living in North Carolina. Like, I think they have to be together.
Yeah, and I think it's another quiet life, Like, I think that it is a very kind of resigned love of recognizing the timing is not right. Like, it can happen now.
And, okay, can you imagine, though, if this was real? And then, like, now, decades later, Daisy Jones and Billy Dunn come out with a new hit single.
Oh my gosh.
That would break the internet, I think. So, and this book comes out. I don't know. I think the inclusion of the email in the text by the author, who is a fictional person, but we're to believe that she included that. I think the inclusion of it makes you think, okay, she showed it to him. Like, he did that. He called her. He called Daisy,
right.
Because otherwise, why include it? That's my opinion.
Well, and I want to highlight too, I love this moment because it shows again, like, how well Camilla knows Billy. Mm-hmm. Because I feel the way that Billy's written, I don't think he would have done anything without Camilla's permission.
No, yeah.
Right? Like, he needed that explicit, like, it's okay.
Blessing.
Yes. The blessing.
And how much she loves him that she's like, I don't want him to be, like, a selfless love of, like, I don't want him to be alone. Like, he's going to need some time, so don't show them right away, but I want him to be happy even when I'm gone. Like, I know how much time left, and I want to set something up for him. Like, I just think that's really nice. So I hope they did. I hope they got together. Maybe the TV show will expand on this, but at the same time, I kind of like it being a little open. Like, I almost like it that you don't really know for sure.
Yeah, I like when authors do that. They, like, leave something to the creation of the reader.
So that's Daisy Jones and the Six. And I love this book. It's definitely one of my top of all time. But to segue, it was inspired by Fleetwood Mac, and I've kind of talked about this at the beginning, but Taylor Jenkins Reid said as a kid she saw a video of a performance, and there's of Stevie Nicks singing Landslide, and there's a moment between her and Lindsey Buckingham, and they used to date, but they were broken up at this point, and they're on stage, and they're moving towards one another, and they kind of end just staring into each other's eyes, and I think she says Lindsey kind of grabbed or, like, put his hand under Stevie's chin. And she was a little kid, but she said she remembers thinking, like, oh, those people are in love. And she said that to her mom, and her mom's like, no, they aren't together anymore. And so she said then when she said, when I decided I wanted to write a book about rock and roll, I kept coming back to that moment when Lindsey watched Stevie sing Landslide, how it looked so much like two people in love, and yet we'll never truly know what lived between them. I wanted to write a story about that, about how the lines between real life and performance can get blurred, about how singing about old wounds might keep them fresh. So that's kind of what her inspiration was. And now we can talk about Fleetwood Mac.
Okay, so yes.
Deep sigh.
Deep sigh, reset, let's ground ourselves. So we decided to read Making Rumours by Ken Calais, which is kind of a memoir documenting the recording of Rumours. So this would have been like the big chunk of Daisy Jones and the Six when they're recording the album. This is like the closest it would mirror. Like Daisy Jones and the Six covers like time period before the recording of Aurora and the time period after, but this is really about the recording of the album Rumours. And it was written by Ken Calais, who was the producer of the album. Does that last name sound familiar to you all?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so he is Colby Callais' dad. This is how I learned she's a Nepo baby.
I know, I was going to say, woo, Nepo baby
Nepo
alert.
Baby alert. So yeah, she's a Nepo baby. And it was, so okay, let's do some context setting about Rumours. So Rumours was it went on to win Album of the Year at the Grammys. It is Fleetwood Mac's like #1 selling album. It was recorded in 1977 and in Sausalito and Los Angeles. And Fleetwood Mac, this was the album that really helped them come to prominence in America. They had been more popular overseas in the United Kingdom. In Britain, but Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham, who were the two members of the band that Taylor Jenkins Reid mentioned, they had recently joined the band. This was their second album with the band, and they kind of came in. They're both American, joined the band of these British people, and kind of took them to the next level. So the people of the band that you're probably the most familiar with are Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham because of their kind of like tension on stage. But the other members of the band are Mick Fleetwood, who is the leader. He is the drummer. Christine McVie, rest in peace, and John McVie. So I kind of like, well, I'll stop there. What are your personal thoughts and feelings about Fleetwood Mac, your relationship to their music?
Personally, I have to say I did not know a lot about Fleetwood Mac. I didn't even know until people started making these like edits on TikTok that Daisy Jones and the Six was based on Fleetwood Mac. That's how out of the loop I am. Just to be honest, I grew up listening to 104.7 The Fish. So
104.7.
Like my knowledge of pop music is, or like whatever. It's limited, So anyways, I didn't know much, but I did obviously read this book as well, mostly. Didn't quite make it all the way through yet. But yeah, I really didn't know anything. I knew obviously like their big songs like, Go Your Own Way, Dreams, Landslide, Chain. I knew their songs, like of course, I think they're very much a part of the popular culture, but I did not know any of the backstory before looking into this.
And Emma, you didn't read this book in preparation for the podcast, so tell us about your feelings on Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah, I'm really interested to hear what you guys have to say because I don't really remember the first time I was aware of Fleetwood Mac. I feel like I listened to Landslide fairly often. On brand. Sad girl song.
Love that song.
Love that song. I do. This is so niche and I'm sorry about it, but I do remember being very young and watching School of Rock, and they mentioned Stevie Nicks in School of Rock. And then I remember being aware of this kind of like rock and roll chick who existed. And I feel like that kind of sparked some love of Fleetwood Mac as well. I listened to a lot of their songs and still do.
So I grew up listening to 104.7 The Fish, but also 97.1 The River.
Classic.
For anyone who grew up in the Atlanta metro area. And my mom would do this thing where like we'd be riding in the car and she would give my brother Joel and I a quarter for every like band we could name. because she wanted us to like get some sort of education about stuff. I don't know. Anyways, so so I knew about Fleetwood Mac from that, but this book was definitely, and also like there's been a bunch of stuff on TikTok now. I don't know if you're on that side of TikTok, but coming up partly because of Daisy Jones and the Six and all this stuff, and people drawing direct connections between Daisy Jones and Stevie Nicks. So with that being said, let's get into it. So if I had to, like, none of these characters can draw a straight line. Like, Taylor Jenkins Reid created her own story. She created her own band. And it's not like she just Control-C, Control-V this scenario. But if I had to draw a line between the band members and the characters in the book, I would say Daisy Jones, Stevie Nicks, Karen, the keyboardist, Christine McVie, Graham Dunn is John McVie, and Billy Dunn is a combination of Lindsey Buckingham and Mick Fleetwood. Being like the band leader, but also having this tension going on with Daisy and whatever. But also, one thing I learned in this book is that Stevie Nicks and Mick Fleetwood had an affair. In addition.
No.
So, yes. A brief affair. Yes.
There's a lot of...
Wild.
While he was married. Yeah.
There's a lot. So, okay. The
Obviously,
reason that they ended up naming the album Rumours, we learned from the book, is that there was a lot of rumors going around about what was going on between the band members when they were recording the album. So they decided to just call it that. And that was for good reason. So
great marketing, by the way.
Yeah, great marketing. So during the course of recording this album, John McVie and Christine McVie had recently gotten divorced, and Christine started dating one of the roadies. Okay. So that's a lot of tension there. Stevie and Lindsey had just broken up.
They were like transitioning out of a relationship, I feel like.
Yeah, they were transitioning out.
It was kind of a slow break.
And then Mick Fleetwood was getting a divorce from his wife, who he then remarried and then got divorced again from whenever he had an affair with Stevie. So there's just a lot going on.
There was a lot. Yeah. It really, first of all, I want to say I was kind of relieved because I was kind of worried, like, what if the story is the exact same as Daisy Jones and Taylor Jenkins Reid is, like, actually a fraud and just didn't have any creativity? But it was very not similar. Like, I think it's more just the idea of a band with men and women who have complicated relationships with each other. Like, that's the real inspiration. But there is not, like you said, a Control-V copy-paste.
Exactly. So, that was actually kind of reassuring.
Yeah, it kind of was. But also it made me think, like, this, they say, like, don't date someone in your office, right? Because then you have to go see them every day. But then, like, this is 1,000 times worse because first of all, they're spending, like, 12 hours a day in the studio with each other. And then they'll come in and be like, hey, there's a song about how I wrote about my ex. He's a piece of shit. And then you're like, your ex is right there playing the guitar. Like,
literally.
How do you do that every single day? So anyways, I just thought this is complicated and not for me personally. I would not want this experience.
That was the big connection to Daisy Jones and the Six. Yeah. It's just a lot. So, look, another disclaimer about this book. It was written from Ken Kelly's perspective. Therefore, there's a bunch of stuff that you would find interesting if you're into recording music in the 1970s on tapes, and a lot of description about the tapes and the soundboard. And so if you're not interested in that, then maybe just take our word for what happens in this book.
Yeah, or like Ken Kelly's personal life, like the women he hooked up with.
I would just like skip
grabs one time. Yeah. If you're not interested in that part either. It's very loose. Oh my gosh, his dog. He loves his dog, I think, more than any woman he has a relationship with.
Yeah.
Anyways, all of that to say, yeah, I would not recommend this book personally, but it was interesting.
It was interesting to read as like a accessory text to Daisy Jones and the Six. So Stevie, obviously, as the Daisy character, is described as not really having much technical knowledge of music and instrumentation. Ken Kelly actually goes on to reveal that none of the members of Fleetwood Mac could read or write music. All of them did everything by ear. Mm-hmm. Isn't that crazy?
It is crazy. But it feels very similar also to like how Daisy Jones and the Six were recording their music. Like they're just like,
Vibes only.
I don't know, vibes aren't right. Do it again, you know?
Yeah. And like Daisy, Stevie is obsessed with her lyrics and feels deeply connected to the songs. And if at any point her lyrics had to be cut or cut down, it was like a very emotional process for her that caused a lot of stress. And she felt very connected to them. It's also described that over time, Stevie gets less and less grounded, more into drugs, more into partying, into like, just she becomes a harder person to deal with over time, like Daisy. And it's also
I think
rumored...
definitely.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I think the Stevie Daisy connection is the most strong of anything in this book. Like, if Daisy Jones is very much seems like a Stevie Nicks. It's Stevie Nicks, right?
Yeah.
Why did I just second guess that as it came out of my mouth? Anyways, Daisy Jones feels very much like a Stevie Nicks like 2.0. Like, that is the clearest line to me.
Yeah, that's the clearest line. Yeah. So it's all this didn't show up as in Daisy Jones, but Stevie Nicks, it's heavily rumored that she thinks she's a witch, or that she is a witch.
I did not know that.
You didn't?
Yes.
No.
Okay. So
she very self-identifies as a witch. And
yeah, so some evidence to that is she obviously in Silver Springs, she's like, people are speculating that she's hexing Lindsay when she looks at him in the eyes and she's like, you'll never get away, you'll never get away, you'll never get away from me. She also says something to Ken about how she hexed his dog because he was on an album cover for Tusk and she wasn't. And then also her song Rhiannon, which is about a Welsh witch. She just really identifies with Rhiannon. There's multiple things, but basically she's a witch and her sister was a princess. No.
She was a witch, bro!
You're gonna tell me?
Okay, anyways. So Lindsay is her ex. He is kind of a shitty dude.
Not a good guy.
To inform. Gifted guitar player, has some anger and violence issues, assaults multiple people through the recording of the album, including tries to strangle Ken. Anyways, he is extraordinarily talented, and he's also very opinionated and annoying. And the story of Billy staying back when everyone went on vacation to re-record parts, that's something Lindsay did with Rumours. So that was a direct pull.
Yeah.
Mick Fleetwood, the drummer, and the band leader, he has probably the best vibes, I would say. This was something I thought was funny. Go ahead.
Fair, but
yeah,
just light adultery.
Yeah, he also had some alcohol issues, but he was described, as wearing his usual tight pants with wooden balls hanging from his belt, swinging between his legs as he played the drum.
Very chill. Yeah, you heard that right.
Sorry?
He also has some really iconic faces that he makes while he's drumming that I would encourage a Google image search of. Mm-hmm. But
so what you just described, that's what we're seeing in the album cover. If you look at the Rumours album cover, the wooden balls hanging from his belt are in there.
Hold on.
You're right.
So that
would be that.
That's it. So Mick
Correct.
Mick and Stevie were the only people who made the album cover, which turns into like a thing.
Yeah. Very reminiscent of the Daisy Jones,
right?
Billy.
Those are wooden balls.
I've always had questions, and now I know.
Now you know. That's his
Thank you, Redirect Podcast.
The more you know, the more you grow. Anyways, another thing that is a direct link from Mick Fleetwood to the book is that he purchases a house in Topanga Canyon that the whole band can live in while recording. So that's another link. I'll also say, as someone who lives in LA now, it was really fun reading both of these books and having like a reference point for all the places they're talking about.
Yeah, that is kind of cool.
So Christine McVie, who would be the Karen character, she also has really good vibes.
And Karen has really good vibes. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
I love Karen's.
We didn't talk about her much, but she does have good vibes.
Yes, so in Daisy Jones, the Karen character and Graham have like a little secret romance. And Christine had a relationship with her husband John, who stays in the band. She's really cool. She's very talented. And she wrote the song "You Make Loving Fun." She wrote that about her new relationship, but lied during the recording to say that it was about her dog, so that she wouldn't hurt John's feelings and cause a fight during the recording. Which I thought
Again,
was a fun
being
anecdote.
in a band with your ex just sounds like a nightmare scenario. So I would not recommend it based on both of these books.
For real. And then her
Cautionary
her
tales.
ex-husband John McVie, major alcoholic, angry alcoholic. He's a bassist. He's resentful of Lindsay's control of the band, and I feel like elements of his personality show up in different characters throughout the cast of Daisy Jones. Like, there isn't necessarily like a direct person, but like a little bit of he shows up a little bit in Eddie, a little bit in Billy, a little bit in Graham. So,
Just a little bit of spice.
but okay, a cool thing about him is, do you guys know in The Chain there's this bass line that's like bum 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 bum. That was totally improvised on the very first take of the recording, and it made it into the final song. It was one of the only things that made it into the final recording of The Chain.
That seemed to happen a lot, where you just like stumble onto something and they're like, "Oh, okay, let's use that," in the book. But again, it's very heavy on the actual recording process, so
Yeah,
a lot of
heavy.
details about that.
Another big thing about drugs that shows up a lot in both books. Throughout the recording, the usage of drugs just was exponential, and there was a lot of cocaine use. Also opium, a little bit.
lot of drugs. If you thought there's a lot of drugs in Daisy Jones and the Six, it doesn't even, it pales in comparison to the amount of drugs that was going on in Fleetwood Mac's recording, because
Everyone was on drugs.
yeah. And I actually was doing some research separately about Stevie Nicks' life, and she said at some interview, like, well, they told us cocaine wasn't dangerous. It was just like recreational fun. So I guess that makes a little sense. Like, but they're just like, okay, you guys, we got to get some energy in this song. Let's all do a line of coke, and then we'll be good to go. And you're like,
Yeah.
excuse me?
This is what I keep thinking while you guys are talking about this. We were mentioning how like realistic Daisy Jones feels, and this feels amped up a
It
little
was
bit.
amped. It was definitely amped.
The actual story is way more
Well, and I think
complicated.
the Daisy Jones and the Six, it does focus a lot more around Billy and Daisy, but mostly Billy, who wasn't involved in any of that stuff. Like, you can imagine what was going on, I guess, when Billy left for the night, and then everyone else is going out and partying. So maybe it was along these similar lines of what is described in the Rumours book.
But they would so Ken would describe like basically this perfect like potion that everyone would do. Like, okay, everyone would show up like, let's say around like 11 a.m. and then like a couple Heinekens for Mick and a couple glasses of champagne for Christine, then a couple cigarettes, a bump of cocaine, and then a mix, like a tea that's like hot water and like whiskey and lemon. It's like everyone had to get buzzed to record. Like, you couldn't just record
then smoke
sober.
some pot, then
Oh,
maybe
pot.
some more cocaine, then then all right, we're good to go. Yeah.
Oh, and another thing I forgot about. So there's this story in Daisy Jones and the Six about the marijuana chocolate chip cookies.
Yes.
That was that really
happened.
to Fleetwood Mac.
Yes. Yes.
And they didn't
ate
know.
all these chocolate chip cookies and they're like, I feel weird. They're like, oh yeah, the cook put some special stuff in there.
Oh my gosh.
So that really happened. But yeah, I mean, everyone had their own, like, everyone was a functioning alcoholic, like,
Yes.
or not functioning, but there was not a single day they recorded sober.
Yes. Very
Wild.
different times. The extent that they were like managing.
It's like they had to have
Yes.
and then
It was
like
a lot.
they call it a transcension. That's what it's called. Like they would call it like when they got perfectly high, they would just kind of like jam for like hours, and it was called like a that's them transcending. And it was
Until,
really
like, 4
annoying
a.m.
to Ken
Yeah.
because he was just like, I want to go home. And this is
Yeah.
most of this stuff is not even usable,
Yeah.
but they felt like they
You know
had it
what?
to transcend.
This book, though, if you're looking for the tea on what happened with Lulu and Mac, this is not the book. But this book reminded me of Graham's quote that I mentioned earlier in Daisy Jones when he's like, I thought music was just music. I feel like that's Ken's vibe. He's like, wait, Stevie and Lindsay are breaking up? Like,
Yeah, he's,
why
like,
are they
so
so
on the
mad at each
outside.
other? He's like, I don't know. Anyways, here's how we spent 45 minutes working this tape so we could cut it at the exact right place to splice it with this other tape. So yeah, it's like very brief mentions of the actual tea.
Well, he mentions one time they have like a screaming match, like Stevie and Lindsay, and they're like, I'm moving out and blah, 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 and I hate you. And he's just like, huh, weird.
Yeah. He's like, what was that all about?
Can you
Anyways.
imagine that tea happening at your workplace and then just being like, oh, I don't know. I'm not going to investigate further. It's like, what the heck?
That is Ken's energy. He's
Well,
like,
it's
let me go get my
interesting to me
dog.
that he wouldn't include any of that. Like he's writing a book about. It would be very easy to just drop in,
Well, one thing that
but it sounds like it just doesn't interest
So
him.
one interesting bit of tea is that I think he carries is like he actually really doesn't like Lindsay at all, especially after he tried to choke him out. And towards the end of the book, he went on to talk about like, yeah, after this album, I helped them produce like 2 more albums, whatever. And he just kind of ends it with like, Lindsay became increasingly horrible to work with, but that's a story for another time. Like basically, like he got more controlling, more difficult to work with, and that he was just like kind of a dick. So,
Well, and I can imagine it would be difficult to write a book like this and really go deep into it when most of these people are still living and, in the public domain and probably don't necessarily
Good point.
want the, parts of their life shared. And so I feel like he kind of towed the line a little of like sharing what happened, but kind of more focusing on his perspective and his like experience. Which again, if you are interested, if you're a big Fleetwood Mac fan, or if you're interested in audio recording from the 70s before there was computers, I think this would be a very interesting.
well, to that end, there were a couple of things I took away from this. At one point, they almost lose the whole album because the tape is going to expire because they've been playing it for 9 months. I'm like,
Insane.
what?
Yeah, like at one point, Ken's like, "Hey, we should make copies of all the like final versions of the songs we have, just in case there's an earthquake, because the tapes, like the records, will like shatter. So like we should probably do that." And you're like,
Oh my gosh.
"This is so precarious. It's like there are no backups. There's no external hard drive. Like it's just this like
no cloud.
No cloud.
no." So
And
it's insane.
you can only have 44 minutes on a record. That's all it will hold. So no, like you can't have Midnight's the 3 a.m. version.
Yeah. Which I did think actually he mentioned something about that. He's like, people think it's so much easier to make music now, but I actually think it's harder because no one's really focused on getting it right in this recording, because you're always like, well, we can just fix it later with like all the stuff you can do with computers nowadays. And he's just like, I don't think people give as much thought to like what they're putting on the recording or, this. And I'm like, yeah, that's probably valid. Like, I think people, and just the pressure to crank albums out so fast again. Like, I think there's just a lot that's like, man, I don't think people think about it nearly as much as they did at this time when you had to get it on the tape just right and you had to get the timing just right. Like, it was a lot more difficult and so you had to be more thoughtful. So it's just interesting.
And it took 6 months to top the charts, which is crazy because it's like Taylor Swift releases an album now, she'll top the charts the next day. But then
It takes a lot of time.
Then it took like radio plays and like people going to record stores to buy your record and like word of mouth from friends. So they were recording Rumours and their first album with Stevie and Lindsay, the White album. It's like topping the charts as they're recording it. which is really interesting.
But when they started, they were like relatively unknown.
Yeah.
And then as they continue to record, their popularity is
Yeah.
rising. Even though they're not putting out anything new, it's just that that's how long it takes to get.
Yeah.
It's weird.
And just my final thought was the lack of technology in general makes the whole process so much more arduous and so long. And I just am so glad that that is not now, because I need Taylor Swift to release at least 1 to 2 albums per year. And with the old technology, that wouldn't be possible. So I'm very thankful for modern technology.
Yes. Amen. It seems like it took a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, any final thoughts about these books?
I just want to say I am so excited again for the TV series of Daisy Jones and the Six. I think it has been perfectly cast from what I've seen so far. And I really have a lot of faith that it'll be good. I don't always have faith in book adaptations, but I believe it's going to be good. And I just trust Amazon Prime. I feel like they do a generally good job, you know. Not Jeff Bezos, I don't trust him, but you know. Amazon Prime, I feel like they're going to do a good job. So I'm really excited to see it come to life. And it does premiere on March 3rd, 2023, with, it says, 1 episode per week. I just think it's going to be really good. And I can't wait to hear the music. So,
oh my God, me too.
Yes.
Those are my thoughts. Emma, any final thoughts?
Yeah, well, this has been so fun. I love talking to you guys about this. And Daisy Jones is such a good pick. I forgot that books can make you feel so many things.
Yeah.
And that's what Daisy Jones was for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I loved it, and I would recommend it to anyone.
I feel like we talked about,
you should read it before the show comes out.
I feel like one thing we talked about at like our episode about like tips for reading in 2023 is read what you like and don't read what you think you're supposed to read.
Yeah.
And
Amen.
that like reignites your love for reading. Like don't
100%.
Yeah, don't read what you think you need.
Especially
to read
if you are going through like a slump, or like you're struggling to focus on reading. Yeah, like read something fun or something that you think will be really good, because that can help like kickstart your reading journey for sure.
Exactly.
So, love it.
Well, should we quickly? We've had a long episode so far, but should we quickly talk about a book we've read recently?
Absolutely, I'm ready. My book, I'll be fast because you've already heard me talk about this, but it's Delirium by Lauren Oliver, which I wanted to read after our dystopian episode. And you guys, it kind of still slaps. Like, it's still good. This is the one where love is illegal. So I'm on book 2 now. I finished book 1. I'm almost done with book 2. I have book 3 waiting for me. But honestly, I was really worried. How will this hold up in the modern age? Will it still be as good? But I really liked it. There's a few things that I'm like, but I really liked it. So it's been a really good reread. So I'm here to endorse it now that I have reread it. I couldn't do so during the dystopian episode, but now I can give it my full endorsement. So if you're looking for a YA dystopian book to throw you back into that world, it was a really quick read. I read it in like one day, but like they're not very long. So thumbs up.
Love that. My book is The Man Who Died Twice, a Thursday Murder Club novel by Richard Osman. It's the second book in the Thursday Murder Club series. I mean, you probably should read the first one first, but I do think it kind of stands alone. Like, you could get, it's been a really long time since I read the first one, and I was fine, but it is so freaking funny. It is I think we talked about it a little bit before the series, but it's a mystery series about a retirement community and a group of people, British people in their 60s and 70s, who solve murders on Thursdays. And the leader of their group is named Joyce, and she's a former MI6 agent. And they just get into crazy hijinks. It is so funny. It is so funny. And also the mystery is really good. And you just like, the writing is excellent, but mostly it's just so funny hearing the story told from these old people's perspectives. And it's amazing. So highly,
good. I can't wait to read that second book. I'm still waiting for it.
And I already got the third one because of how good
nice.
the second one was. So anyways, highly endorse read the Thursday Murder Club series. That's it. Emma, do you have anything you'd like to share?
I actually am thrilled to be able to participate in this right now because I actually am reading a book. It's called
Woohoo!
Love in Color by Bolu Babalola. She is an author. She's British, and I've been following her on Twitter for a while because she's hilarious. I think her handle is bbabs. And this book, the tagline is Mythical Tales from Around the World Retold. And it's basically these kind of vignettes, these stories. It's separated by character. Each vignette is focused on a different character. And it's really good. I really love the way she writes.
Yeah,
it's
my
excellent.
book club recommended it, I think.
Okay. She writes another one that just came out, or more recently, called Honey and Spice, and I think that one was featured on Reese Witherspoon's book club.
Nice.
But I think Love in Color is one that came out last year.
Great recommendation.
Thank you, Emma.
Thank you.
Thank you for being on the podcast, Emma. This was fun.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Great.
So fun. Appreciate it.
This is where we fade out to the music.
Great stuff, you guys.